Illumo is a video lecture series brought together by a collaboration among SIBM Pune's student councils, namely the alumni team, iSmart, and RSD team, to help the students bridge the gap between textbook learning and industry realities. For our inaugural session, we have with us Mr. Arijit Chakrabarti, Associate Vice President at Group M and an SIBM Pune alumnus from the batch of 2001. Mr. Chakrabarti, a certified data science enthusiast, currently heads the creative functions nationally for the out of home and cinema practice. He's an industry stalwart with over 19 years of experience across multiple sales and marketing functions in leading organizations like Madison's Outdoor Media Solutions, Bennett Coleman and Co. Limited, Tata Docomo, and Greenlam Industries. Sir, it's a pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure here as well.
So, like one of the major questions that we have, we've all heard the terms of exploratory analytics, descriptive analytics, diagnostic analytics, and predictive analytics. So, could you give us, like, explain what these are with some examples of where we'd be using them, like in the actual job role of analytics?
Right. Yeah. So, these are very nice, fancy words which ultimately describe very simple aspects of data science. If we were to take away all the sheen from all these high-sounding words, and they have their place for it. Ultimately, what is it that you're doing? You have data. One of the most critical aspects in data science is actually more than the algorithm, more than the programming, is actually getting good data. And by good data, I mean clean data, data without gaps in between, regular, properly formatted data. And honestly, that's not available. It's very rarely that you'll find data like this, readily available. So, one of the biggest, most amount of time, in fact, I'm working on a current project for my office right now, and it's a similar issue. The data itself is a mess, and it's spread across, some 40 different columns. One of the critical things for me is to first get that data into a usable shape. And that's something that I've been spending time on. Yes, there are libraries available for it, but ultimately you can't take away the fact that you need to, get your hands dirty with it. You need to be able to understand what each column represents. You need to be able to understand, what is it that you're expecting from the final output. One of the biggest things that we tend to get lost in is that when we see data, we say, "Wow, this is great," and we completely lose sight of what the objective is. Ultimately, there is, like you asked in your question, there is a business objective for it. It is very important to remain true to the objective and not go on to a wild goose chase where you articulated, you found some problem with the data, and you spend your time doing that. That will not help you from a business application perspective. That is great from a exploratory data science where you want to actually understand what is the data about, what is it giving, but that's not a reality. We don't do that. I mean, the whole idea is that there is an issue at hand, there is an objective at hand, and we need to massage that data and make it into the shape that we would like an output for. So at the first level, so getting the data in the right shape, in the right form is the most critical. And in fact, that takes the most amount of time. After that, the actual coding, the actual Pythonic code that you will put together. Snippets are available once again online. Read through it, understand it. But yeah, you need to have a basic understanding of what each, let's say machine learning algorithm or what ANN you're going to use there, what architecture you're going to use, how deep do you want to create that ANN, how many neurons do you want to have. Yes, that's something, once again, like I harped earlier, like poetry. There is no fixed method to it. There is no fixed science saying that, if you have 64, then 46, then 32, that's the sort of structure that will help, and give you a much better work. So you can build that up. And the final point is experiment. The fun part about data science is that there is no fixed path. I mean, you and I can work on the same problem with a completely different model, completely different algorithm, but ultimately we have to keep in mind that the objective is to minimize loss. If there is an accuracy objective, we have to ensure that we are achieving that accuracy. If there is a recall objective, we have to ensure that we are getting that recall, we're getting that F1 score. So as long as we keep those basic parameters in mind, your answer is as good as mine. As long as it's answering that. So most important thing, yeah, is to get that right data set. And then the challenges as far as coding and putting it all together, not that much of a big deal. Available, basic level of intelligence, basic level of being able to search and being able to assess. That's great. But one critical aspect to and especially in application, is to be able to evaluate that model. So, bit of statistical understanding as far as model evaluation is concerned. That's something like confusion matrices, etc. You should be able to have a decent understanding of it, so that how can I tweak it better? What hyperparameters can I tweak in that? And nowadays there is auto ML, right? There is auto machine learning, so they can tweak those hyperparameters for you. But you need to be able to define that range. If that range itself is wrong, the amount of hyperparameter tuning that you do is not going to get you anywhere, right? So having that basic understanding, but having a decent enough understanding of model evaluation, statistical model evaluation, I think it's sufficient as far as basic level data science is concerned.
So there are two important points that you've mentioned here, and like I'd like some more explanation regarding that. So you've mentioned that cleaning the data set is the most important and most time consuming aspect. So sir, how does one learn how to do it? And another aspect is something which is generally noticed and generally said, that for data science and analytics, the more data you have, the better it is. And similarly, there's also saying the more recent data you have, the better it is. So how does one strike a balance between more data and more recent data?
Okay. Okay. So there's a fallacy of more data. Uh, that's kind of that's more data is applicable in the case of ANNs. Yes, if I'm doing let's say a classification problem on photographs, if I have 50,000 photographs, it's good. If I have 1 million photographs, it's better. But not really in the case of regular machine learning algorithms, like a decision tree, etc. So random forest and all those. There is a level up to which it helps, but beyond that, no. So that whole idea that the more data I feed into a data science model, it'll make it better. That's not statistically true. That's not statistically always true. And however, yeah, if I look at it conversely into neural networks, yes, it does help. It does help in terms of more data. There is a good level, and businesses always will never have unlimited data, right? Data, I mean, though we say that there's a lot of data available, but good qualified data, you'll always find that one important column missing, right? Which is the one that you need to be able to solve that machine learning problem that you have. So, as long as you have good enough, and to me, good enough can be something as simply described as rooted, where n stands for the number of people that you have. That's also great. So anything above that is better, but it's not always true. So, I don't believe in that concept that more is always better. Recent can also have its challenges. Recent might be biased. Maybe because of COVID, there are more people right now at home. Does that mean that will continue forever? Maybe, maybe not. Why have predictions on COVID infection rates gone wrong? Simply because there was no there was no previous data available on it, right? So it's not always true that the more recent the data is, the more accurate it is. Rather, having a better spread of data, having different features, different aspects of that data set being covered properly across the entire gamut of the environment, that gives a much better understanding than saying that more recent data. And in terms of the number of samples, yeah, there is a limit up to how many samples make a good data set, and beyond which it just overfits the model. That's all.
Yes. So about the cleaning, how does one learn how to clean the data set?
Yeah. So cleaning. So this is one thing. So previously, prior to my experience with Python, yes, I would typically clean my data on Excel. And Excel, despite being very powerful, we've described it in glowing terms, it has a lot of limitations. Python has a lot of inbuilt packages which allow you to do that, which also allow you to manipulate that data and get it into the sort of format that a machine learning model can accept. So once again, there is no one single path fits all in the case of cleaning data is concerned. But what is definitely true is that you need to understand the data. You need to understand what each column represents. You need to understand what each unique value in it is representing. As long as you have a broad overview of what the columns represent, the actual data in itself, like for example, if you want to find out duplicates, there is a single there's a single word that can be used in Python to understand whether there's duplicate rows of data. Whereas in the case of Excel, you can also do that. You can find unique rows and you can figure it from that, right? There's a small tab up there which you can and get that through. So there is no one size fits all. Once again, it's deeply dependent upon the sort of data that you're looking at, and therefore apply the best way for it. In fact, I wouldn't even go as far as to say that, okay, should you always use Python for cleaning your data set? Maybe if you're more conversant with Excel and it's a more simpler problem, you might just go ahead with Excel and do that. Ensure that you're using what you're comfortable with and use that to solve the business problem, and not go down a rabbit hole to figure out maybe some arbitrary issue which has no link to the actual business problem.
So nowadays, and especially due to the COVID pandemic and the lockdowns almost globally, so we've had an increase in the use of internet, especially platforms like OTT platforms like Netflix have seen a massive rise in user base. So how can concepts like the recommendation system, which is used in Netflix as well as Amazon, be used in newer ways to serve the existing customers?
Okay, yeah. So bit of these are kind of thoughts that I have about implementing, for example, a recommender system for example, in out of home. And no, I haven't implemented it yet. These are forward-looking statements, but I do have the picture of it, and it also depends upon the sort of data that we're able to get across. But for example, okay, let me give you an example. Recommender system. Now we at GroupM, in fact, in Kinetic, we work with over 240 clients every year. Okay, so that's a huge space, and there's a huge number of campaigns concurrently running at any given point of time. So let's say client X. Okay, there is this client X, and client X does say campaigns across certain periods of time. Okay, across certain period of time in the year. I can actually use machine learning and actually inform or alert the client service team member that, hey, client X is about to get active. Because they're typically active at this time. So now go and meet them. Figure out whether they have a campaign or not. That's one way, right? In terms of actually using the recommender system, say a client X has a plan which consists of site number 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12, 15. So that's the typical campaign, right? I can actually go ahead and say that, okay, going by the attributes of these, by a site, I need outdoor units, right? Like a hoarding, for example, as you would say, or a billboard, for example, right? So they typically take those sorts. I can actually build an attribute model from it, right? I can build up an Excel from that. And I can actually say that suppose you're going into a new market, I can actually use recommender system to go ahead and say that going by your past, usage of the medium, this is the plan that I recommend for you. And I don't even need to say that, no, I've used a recommender system behind it. I need to say that, see, this is the plan that I have for you. So rather than, me getting a separate trading team or a buying team member to sit and make a plan where he might go completely haywire, I can actually use a computer which knows the universe of sites in the new market that the client is going to, and actually prepare a plan basis looking at all the past plans that client X has executed, and say that this is the plan that we recommend for you. And I'm 100% sure the client is going to say this is bang on, or is going to say one or two sites look good, but overall there. And that data is available. It's about us, let's say, imaginatively looking at that data and seeing that, okay, where does the recommended system fit in for it? So that's something that I've had in my head. Honestly, I've not been able to recommend it. Been able to create it till now. But that's something that we can actively go, and that will work on all fronts. A, it makes life simpler for my client servicing team member, right? It kind of ensures that I'm giving him a product rather, or something to sell, which the client has already bought. Everything is that. The recommender system is that. Why is Netflix telling you with a 93% accuracy this is a match for you? Because the sort of attribute that season or that movie possesses is in sync with what you have. So you can blindly say, okay, this is a 95%, let me go and click it. And more often than not, you'll probably like it, more often than not. I'm just taking the same thing for a plan. I'm saying that, okay, I know typically how client X looks at out of home. So this is the plan that I therefore recommend for you. So it allows my client servicing team member to take a product which is already pre-sold. Okay, so for him to have that conversation is so much more easy. He doesn't need to sell the plan. It takes away the stress from my buyer and from my client servicing team member. Once again, creating a brief, identifying, is brief made, this is what is important, this needs to be done. It's probably a mirror image of what the previous brief anyway was, right? So for having to, reinvent the wheel for my buying team, that's also gone out. So, overall, as an organization, the stress goes out. And at the same time, I have a client who's more convinced and is probably going to buy that campaign. And the next time also when he briefs us, he's going to be that much more confident that, hey, I think Kinetic does a good job on my plans. Yeah, let me brief them. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be a painless experience. That's a very simple method, like right now, which we can go ahead and actually implement for the recommender system.
So thank you for your views, and I believe it's been really enlightening for everybody who will be watching this. So we've come to the end for this interview, and it's been a great pleasure and an honor to host you. We would have loved to host you on campus, but for now we're doing this virtually. Maybe sometime later we'll have you on our lovely Hilltop on campus. So for now, sir, thank you for informing us, the students, as well as the viewers, about the poetry hidden in the depths of data, about the possibilities that even people who are not from a technical background can actually take up analytics. They just need to have the drive and the passion for it. Thank you, sir. Your alma mater will always be there for you and always welcome you to our lovely Hilltop campus. Thank you. And I hope you've had a pleasant experience.
Thank you. Cheers.